Hello and welcome to another edition of From the Desk of. I'm Jim Cohen, the CEO of Minneapolis Jewish Federation, and I am thrilled to have as my guest today my colleague in the building, the CEO of Minnesota Jewish Community Center, Stephanie Chauss. Stephanie, welcome to the Desk of.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I'm really glad that we've had this opportunity to chat. You just celebrated a one-year anniversary in your current position as CEO. How's it going?
It's going great. I mean, we know that this is a hard time to be leading in our Jewish community, but it's the exact right time also. Thinking back on the past year, there are a lot of highlights and things that I'm really proud of as we brought together more professionals and really looked at what programs we're doing, why we're doing them, and how we can enhance them. I also was surprised in my first year. One thing that continued to surprise me was that there were two ways people understood the J, and this is generally speaking, of course.
Yeah.
It was and I did listening sessions in groups, individually. People connect their experience with the JCC from a singular perspective of I attend camp, I get on the treadmill, I go to kosher lunch, and very singular. So I immediately knew there's work to do to connect stages of life and to connect interests in a more meaningful way. The other perspective was so often related to my grandmother, my grandfather, and what their experience of the JCC was. And so it occurred to me that we had some opportunities. One is, on one hand, we are their grandparents' JCC. On the other hand, we're not. And so we have adapted through time and making sure that they have understood that.
It's really interesting that you say that because, one of the joking taglines that we've said around Federation for a while is, this is not your Bubby's Federation.
Mm-hmm.
And yet it has to be, and it has to be something else at the same time.
Correct.
Because you can't focus on one cohort and ignore the other. You have to be able to adapt and to stay true to what matters to an older generation, to really be true to what the organization is all about. So it's funny to hear, not surprisingly, that applies to other organizations. And, one of the things that I've enjoyed learning is through the fact that we allocate substantially to the JCC, learning all about all of the various facets of what the JCC does, that it isn't just one thing. It's another thing it has in common with Federation is that we're many different things to many people, and really understanding that and getting your head around it is important. And I can imagine that even though you have lots of JCC experience, really seeing that from the top of the pyramid has been interesting.
Yeah, it's been interesting when I think about how people were thinking about it in a singular perspective, and the fact that I can be surprised on any given day, like, oh, we do that? That's amazing. And so it speaks to who we are. The one thing about the grandparents' generation is that I remind people as we evolve is that the JCC got it right for our grandparents and their parents. And it wasn't about how we used a swimming pool or where they could attend a Shabbat lunch. It was about the core of what the JCC means in a community. And that's connecting people and giving them a place to belong.
Speaking of that core, one of the things I was very impressed with when you first started, and we started talking about how we could continue our partnership, is you had an intense desire to put more Jewish content into the JCC. How has that been your first year? Is there something you're particularly proud of? And where do you see that moving in year two?
Well, it's interesting because there's no data points on how Jewish are we, but there is a feeling, and there is and was an opportunity to just enhance our Jewish identity. And the first piece of business that I tended to was unapologetically saying, we are a Jewish organization. It doesn't mean we exclusively serve Jewish people but what it does mean is that the Jewish part shows up in everything we do. And that's bringing people along to understand it, that it strengthens the greater good. So once we declared it and continue to talk about it, I would say that we've had some great experiences with small things. And it doesn't have to be, this is why we're Jewish on every turn and every program, but it needs to enhance. And I am greatly appreciative of yesterday evening, one of our rabbis in the community mentioned in a parent meeting for early childhood that they are so excited about how Jewish is showing up. And I thought, oh, I'm so excited that I get to talk to Jim Cohen tomorrow. So it all worked. But what's ahead of us is
That's my tip, right? You
yeah,
didn't bring any
right.
cash. Okay,
Right.
I'll take it.
You take it. Saying that our Jewish identity, values, culture is woven into our fabric is one thing. And then setting standards is a second. And then deciding how will that show up and how will people feel like, okay, I'm confident in the J and the JCC. And so, in our goals for the upcoming year, the conversations with our board, we are bringing back a task force that got slowed during COVID, like many things. That was the J and the JCC, not intending to decide little things, but intending to decide how people feel us, see us, and know us.
Do you think it's been somewhat easier to emphasize that J and the JCC in the current climate we're in because people are looking for more connection in the post October 7th environment?
I think that's entirely true. And as a leadership lesson, I will not wait for any other horrific, tragedy to jumpstart our thinking. But when our communities are saying wholeheartedly they want to belong to a Jewish community, it's an incredible opportunity for the JCC to show up. And so that has enhanced it. All of the things related to our enrollments and our membership, how many people show up in our book clubs and our writing has increased. And we do believe it's very directly relevant to just the upsetting events that happened on October 7th.
You mentioned culture, and I want to get to something else in a second. But before I forget, I've spoken on the podcast and in some of my Shabbat messages about the Minneapolis Mifgash, the global experience for Jewish community professionals that Federation is sponsoring. You have 6 members of your team coming with us in June to Israel. You yourself just came back from Israel on a JCC-related trip. First of all, what did you get out of that experience? And what is it that you hope your staff members, your team members get in June?
So whether or not you were going to bring this up, I was going to sing the praises of the Minneapolis Jewish Federation. Having just returned from Israel and really being a part of our homeland and feeling the strength and the sorrow and the love and the rejoice you can feel by being in Israel, there's nothing but good that can come out of it, even in our saddest days. And so the Minneapolis Jewish Federation has given and will give one of the greatest gifts in terms of impact, I believe, by taking Jewish professionals to Israel. 3 things come to mind. The first is the magic of Israel. You have to go there. You have to feel it. The words can't even fully describe it. It ignites our soul. It ignites our spirit by being there. It also right now teaches about resistance and grit and our history and our future in a way that I don't think you can get in a classroom. The second thing that comes to mind is the gift of collaboration. As part of the Mifgash program, it's not just go to Israel and come back. There's I call it the pregame and the postgame, and the learnings around really teaching what true collaborative spirit is coming out through Mifgash, but also the relationships that are being built will be key to our future. And the third thing that I think about in terms of the gift the Federation is giving us is that it's creating longevity and a pipeline for people to work in Jewish agencies. And so while I, on one side, say, I hope people stay with the JCC forever, I also feel great responsibility that they serve our Jewish community and that we look at it as all of our organizations together will raise up leaders. This is a profound example that we will see well into the future.
I certainly hope it has that effect, and being able to offer this as a piece of professional development and staff retention is a key factor in why we're doing it. And I agree with you wholeheartedly that if we really want to uplift the notion of being a Jewish communal professional, we as a community need to recognize that there's a larger ecosystem, and that if someone has the opportunity to improve their situation or advance professionally at another Jewish organization, within the community, it's not stealing, it's not poaching, it's keeping someone in the profession. And I think that we've come a long way as a community in recognizing that. And to the extent that this helps that, that would make me feel good. So I agree with you on that. Your trip to Israel that you were just on, you were with folks from JCCs from throughout the United States, or certainly from other communities. And I'm curious, how do the challenges that you're facing here in the Twin Cities and that our Jays are facing stack up against that of your colleagues? Are there things that we're leading on? Are there things that you're learning best practice from? People always like to see, where they're doing pretty well. So what kind of report can you give us?
Well, I came back confident that as North America Jewish movement, we are strong and hopeful for the future, being with 12 other CEOs. I also came back with great pride that, something would come up in conversation that I thought was just a JCC thing. It didn't mean it was a Minnesota JCC thing, that people are like, you're doing what? How did you get there? What steps should we be taking? So you experience pride. What we also learned is that while people like to think every JCC is unique and special, we are all challenged with some of the same things. One of them being changing community. Where people are moving, we're lucky because we have multiple locations that can serve people, but it's also, what are people looking for? If it's not their, Zadie's JCC, then what is it? And so we see that. The rising cost of resources is having a tremendous impact. The example I give is that y'all know Jewish day camp or any camp is just so impactful for our children. And we were paying them $1,000 a summer, and now we're paying $6,000 a summer. And yet we can't push that cost off to parents.
Right.
We could go up maybe $200. So there's just a big disconnect. And then you pile on things like insurance, additional security costs that we're experiencing. It all feeds to the same question of how do we have a sustainable model that stays true to our mission and allows us to move forward. I felt like every other federation is going to maybe frown at you at your next conference, because when I talked about everyone's having pipeline problems, like what's our succession planning? And when I talked about the gift that Minneapolis Federation has given to our JCC and our community, people were flat-footed. They couldn't believe it. And they thought, I'm sure they were all messaging their federation partners saying, when can we expect this from you?
It wasn't my intention to get myself in trouble.
Yeah, there you go. But it is true that if we want our best people in our JCCs, we have to be thinking about it from the first time they walk onto a Jewish day camp setting, whether they come in to teach a group exercise class, what's their potential and how will we be relevant for our staff?
Camp is a good example of the fact that one of the positives, there were many, but one of the positives that came out of the JCCs merging a few years ago was the ease with which people could take advantage of all the facilities and offerings at both campuses. And one of the great jewels on the other side of the river, most of our listeners are from Minneapolis, but hopefully there are a few folks from the other side of the river listening, is Camp Butwin, which augments nicely what we offer here in our building at Olami. Is there much cross traffic?
Yeah, we set some early goals as a combination of wouldn't it be nice if we had a bus stop here, 12, 18 campers going to Camp Butwin, and between this stop and a stop at Minneapolis Synagogue, we had almost 2 full bus loads. And what it says is that Camp Butwin is a treasure. There's 2 kinds of JCC day camp programs. We're really proud of Olami, but we have nearly 90 acres of land attached to a regional park that's 24 minutes away from both JCCs. Besides increasing opportunities for our families, I would just add that Camp Butwin is a community asset, and we all collectively, regardless of location, should be thinking about how we can best use that location year round. We have a lodge, but we have opportunities to bring people together for simchas, for team building. There's so many opportunities. We're going to be introducing senior day camp, We're going to introduce more and more programs because it's a phenomenal space and place. And much like the Minneapolis Jewish Federation has done for the Berry Family Campus, making it a community space, that's our vision for Camp Utwin, and making sure that it's filled really 365 days a year.
Senior day camp sounds pretty cool to me. I hope I'm still a little too young for senior day camp. In the interest of full disclosure, we are recording this episode From the Desk of on my birthday, so I do feel a little old, but I hope that thrives so that when I'm ready to go to senior day camp, I can go to senior day camp. I wanted to ask you specifically about one program, and that is Rimon. For those of you who are listening who don't know, there's been a little reordering around here at the Berry Family Campus, and as of April 1st, Rimon, which had been housed at Minneapolis Jewish Federation, is now part of the JC, and it's part of what I hope is that desire to, Jewish programming, arts content. We're very, very pleased that Rimon has found a new home, but I'm wondering if you could shed a little insight as to what plans you might have for it.
Yeah, first of all, I would be remiss if I didn't say to the broader audience, this is an example of Jewish organizations coming together and maximizing resources in a way that has profound impact. We have a long history of Jewish arts and culture programming. This adds to what I would say is our platform. It introduces different media and different people into our Jewish arts and culture program. It also allows us to think differently and how we can impact not only our audiences, but through a lens of different forms of art. Rimon's history and importance in our community, we respect and honor that, and will just be happy to grow that in addition to all of our programs.
That's terrific. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing where the JCC team takes Rimon and all of the opportunities that really will avail themselves, because this is a community that loves the arts. When I travel, and not just within the Jewish community, but I talk about the Twin Cities and how vibrant the art scene is, and theater and culture, they're all jewels that a lot of people don't know about. And so to the extent that we can polish them, that's really terrific. I'm going to ask an unprepared question because a little birdie peeped in my ear. Somebody told me that you are exploring the possibility of having a Hebrew classroom at the ECC here in Minneapolis. True?
True. So From the Desk of listeners are getting this early, and we are real excited. We're past exploring. We are now putting the pieces in motion that beginning in the fall, our early childhood program will offer a Hebrew language program for our preschool age kids.
That's just terrific.
And we can hardly wait as we're slowly introducing this concept. We are putting the details together. We're hiring the teachers. We're working with a JCC in California who has already done this. So we're using a lot of their curriculum and having their director help influence our program. We will start small and grow as we can. And we do believe this program is an example of making sure that we are connecting ourselves to the broader community.
That's fabulous. And I am being perfectly honest when I say I didn't know that it had advanced to that stage, that this was not a setup. So I have to ask the question, do you think that this will be up and running for this fall, or is it the following fall? Amazing.
Yes.
That's just terrific.
And when I say listeners got in on it first, over the next 4 to 5 weeks, we will be rolling it out and opening for registration. And we have already started to bring in parent groups to talk about what it means to them. And we have a lot of interest, and we are really excited.
Well, Kol HaKavod, and I hope and trust it will be very successful. We're almost out of time. I want to thank you, Stephanie, so much for joining me today. It's been such a pleasure to work with you this past year. Everyone on our team loves working with your team. So I'll end with a softball, and that is, if there's one thing about the Minnesota JCC that you would want people to know about who know nothing about it, someone lands from Mars and you have a quick elevator pitch, what's the one thing you would want to share with them?
The JCC is for everyone. And our intent is to connect people through Jewish values, culture, and identity to others, to broaden our community. And there are lots of tools in our toolkit to do it, from programming to meals together to early education, but there is something really for everyone at the JCC.
And as a neighbor of the Minneapolis campus of the Minnesota JCC, I can attest to that. Thank you again for joining me at this table. And until next time, I'll be here at the desk of. Bye now.